So the reason I wanted to do this podcast is twofold. 60% of the reason why I wanted to do it was because I was on Love Island on season 1, and the filming and editing process is interesting. And I know that it's a very popular TV program. I think that fans of the show would like to find out some of the stuff that goes on during the process. 40% of the reason is due to a pure time management perspective, that I get asked the same questions over and over, and now all that I need to do is link them to this single podcast.
So even 10 minutes ago, you got a text saying, what was Love Island like?
Hi mate, what was it like on Love Island?
So
now all that I need to do is create a shortcut on Alfred or on text correction on my phone.
Life hacks 1.
Life hacks 1. That camera.
Why not that one?
That one's not looking at me, mate.
I see. Very clever.
If you are listening through iTunes, we are in a room
surrounded
by technology. But it's been offset by the fact that I've got some lovely candles over the far side. So,
just say technology was too much.
Yeah, exactly. So, did either of you watch Love Island when I went on? I'm talking, for people who don't know what I'm on about, Love Island is a reality TV program in the UK. It is a little bit like a cross between Take Me Out and Big Brother. I think it's probably pretty fair to say. It's not as sort of cheesy or raunchy as X on the Beach, which is an MTV show, or as Geordie Shore. It's not kind of as extreme as that. It's kind of it's quite fluffy in a way, I guess. And yeah, I was the first person through the door on season 1, and I was there for 3 and a bit weeks. I was there, and yeah, it was 2.5 years ago now, but it has just been released on Netflix.
So you've had another surge of interest.
Well, I mean, the people are grilling me about stuff that I did 2.5 years ago when I can't remember what I did this morning.
So I guess the first thing is, have you rewatched it or rewatched any part of it to refresh your memory? Or when people
just shift yourself around, Johnny, it's fine.
So what's happening is I'm trying to find a comfortable place to sit, and my glute med keeps cramping.
Why is that?
Because my legs are so long.
No, it's not. It's because you didn't do your run one today.
Well, yeah, okay, fair enough.
So
Life hacks 1?
Life hacks 101. So, what was your question? Oh, has there been more?
So have you watched anything to refresh your memory, or when people ask you about specifics, is that like, oh yeah, I did that thing?
If I'm honest, my memory of what happened now is almost exclusively from the TV viewer's perspective.
Right.
So my memories of being... No, that would be an exaggeration. It's 50-50. 50% of my memories are watching it from the angle of the camera.
So when you see it, can you think like, oh, I remember...
To a degree, but...
I suppose you're only seeing a very filtered version of what actually happened on you.
But even that, like, obviously I was there. But there's just something strange about watching yourself on TV. Really, really weird. Especially because it is edited quite nicely and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's it. I think there's one question that everyone asks. It's the first question that everybody asks about Love Island, and is it scripted? And it's not at all, which I think surprises a lot of people.
Zero structure.
Didn't say that.
Okay.
So what they say is it scripted? And I think a lot of the reasons for that are when you take a normal conversation, normal discourse, day to day, and you put like a Justin Bieber song in the background and like have a drone flying around or like some cool music and a camera floats around on a boom arm and you chop it up cleverly. The whole point is to make it seem cohesive, right? It's to make these people that are on the show seem cool and aspirational and interesting to watch and engaging. And by virtue of that, it has to look polished, which I think can lead to people thinking that's contrived, that's bollocks, which isn't true. It's not scripted. However, there are what's called villa producers, and these are the point of contact between the cast, the primary point of contact between the cast and the production team. And what they'll do is they'll come into the villa, into the garden, which is usually where everybody is, and just take people off to one side that are having it. So me and you have had an argument because both of us like Yusuf, and
it's the trousers, man.
It's. I can't believe the first time that we videoed a podcast, you decided to wear.
Sorry, go on. The first podcast we ever recorded, he wore bright green trousers.
You still got those?
I still have. I wore them the other day.
You promised me you were going to burn them.
I promised I'd burn the green high tops. So.
I mean, I just fucking despair, don't I? Anyway. What was I saying? That's your one chance to pick that glass.
I know. It goes back on the carpet.
It goes back on the carpet. Yeah, so Villa producers, they come in, and me and you have had an argument about the fact that we like Yusuf. And what she'll do is she'll come over and she'll say, "So Johnny, how do you feel about your chat you just had with Chris?" "Oh, well, like I'm a little bit worried because I thought me and Yusuf were going to get it on, but it's turned out that he actually likes Chris instead now, and I'm feeling a bit weird. What I think you should do, maybe grab Yusuf, go over the far side, have a little chat with him, and then you go over." Are you touching your boobs while You are. You're used to audio only, and we've got video today.
So I'm just
cupping. You're doing self cupping, and you've got. You're just immune, aren't you? So. And then say go over the far side and have a chat. But when you go over the far side, you will see they've set up shitloads, an army of cameramen outside of the boundary of the house, all pointing in your direction.
Right.
So they don't. The show is not scripted, but is there a structure? Yeah, absolutely. The thing that everybody needs to remember when they're watching Love Island is that there's only 24 hours in a day, and if you produce any content as a cast member, as a Islander as it's called, up until 4 a.m. ish, the next night at 8 p.m, that will be edited and be on TV.
How many editors do they have? They must have a team.
So there's a whole bunch of things that are surprising about it. Probably one of the most surprising things was that the villa that we were in, I think it's a different villa now. I haven't watched season 3, so I'm not sure. The villa that we were in was very, very nice and had the largest natural water pool in all of Europe.
It was huge.
It was massive. So I was it was absolutely huge, and it was salt water as well. So it's just crazy. This millionaire French investor's house, a villa, and he had the exact same villa brick for brick in France.
So you just went over to France.
The exact same one, the same layout, the same masonry work.
But if you just do Command A and select all, and then
Command C, Command V,
yeah,
return.
It's wet, but when you're trying to put it down, it needs to all be green.
Don't script the formatting then. Don't hold down.
No, but when you're copying it over, and it'll have the layout. And if any of it's red, then you can't lay it down.
It won't. Yeah, you have to have.
You have to write like.
What if you run out of? Well, you wouldn't have run out of funds because he was mega rich. So. We go out of the villa sometimes. I'll get to that in a second. When we went out of the villa, it looked like Basra. There is rows, and this is without exaggeration, 100 industrial units, corrugated iron, like what you'd see on shipping containers, on the back of these huge freighters that are coming over. And there's 4 in a row production office, all with huge air conditioning units on the back. 2 in a row Caroline Flack's changing room. 5 in a circle, task team, the guys that do the challenges, and there's a woodwork shop and all the rest of it, and all of these have just been shipped over. And you go out and you have you're just this tiny little gnat, going, "Oh, I fancy that bird, and she doesn't fancy me back." And you go outside and you're just like, just fucking hell.
That's really haunting, actually. It's a very sci-fi horror kind of scenario.
You just realise how much of a bastard that operation is. It is, and this was the first one, and it's got exponentially bigger. So season 1 was probably a quarter as popular as season 2, which is probably a quarter as popular as season 3. So I can only imagine that level of extremity has been taken further. Yeah. So yeah, you go out and the number of producers and
you'd feel like you're living in a simulation.
Yeah,
immediately. It's like the Truman Show, isn't it? Where everything's engineered, like conversations are engineered, the environment's engineered, everyone's watching everything that you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, the first time that I went outside, I couldn't believe just how many of these things there were. There's a full on-site canteen. They've got bus drivers working on rotation 24 hours a day shipping people from the accommodation where they've bought a whole hotel for like 2.5 months.
Wow. What, just for the team?
Just for the team, just for the production team. They've got a team of 60 security who are on rotation at all times.
Round the villa?
Round the villa, but also just around the production place.
Right.
And they're checking in at the top, like, beep, beep. Shh, we've got a grey Ford Mondeo just driving down the hill. John, can you have a look? Shh. No worries, mate, no worries. It's just Domino's guy again for Joanne. So, yeah, is it scripted? No, it's not. But do they poke the storylines? Yeah, they definitely do.
I suppose there has to be a narrative, and I think editing, you can create any narrative you want from quite a small amount of data, which I guess is why, with politicians, the Ed Miliband video that was going around, where it looked like he was just psychotic because he just kept repeating weird phrases, and it's because someone uploaded the entire take of 5 minutes. But he knows that he's going to get chopped into 20 seconds or something, so he has to keep repeating. So that
he just said it in 45 different ways, and then eventually got it right. Well,
put down the rhetoric, put it aside, get onto the negotiating table, and come together, and then you just keep
just in every different iteration of that available. Right. Well, I mean, one of the things that you can't do, which actually sucks a little bit, is there's no second takes, and if it was scripted, there would be. You can't do stuff. And you don't get a second chance to say the same thing to people in terms of an impression. And that means that the reaction can't be contrived. Like the guys that are going on here, the guys that do Geordie Shore, they're 16 seasons deep. They probably could have had sufficient media training to actually be able to fake a response. Mm-hmm. Like you've picked fucking Stephanie, 18, hairdresser from Wigan, and dropped her in the middle of Mallorca and said, right, Stephanie, we're just going to have to take that again. Can you just do the same reaction, please? Your head's going to explode.
Yeah.
So it's
all first time. There's nothing ever gets done again.
So the challenges that they do, there's challenges to win dates and stuff like that. Those do get second takes. They're much more highly produced, and the dates are as well.
Right.
One of the reasons for that is that in the villa, you've got controlled camera setups. We've come in today and this is the first time that we're videoing something in here. It's the first time that the guys that are recording it have had to come in and set up. And the longest amount of time of anything was set up. Mm-hmm. But if you were to come in and do it again, it would be, boom, dropped straight in. So, little known fact about Love Island. On the week before we went in, on season 1, they did an entire 6-day dry run with a whole separate cast, exactly the same, purely so that they could get the camera angles and the lighting right.
Wow, just so they don't have to do all of that while you're there.
So there was a pair of Italian twins that come in on mine, like season 2 or season 3 or something like that. Episode 2 or episode 3.
Oh, right, okay.
And they had a different pair of twins. So everything was the same storylines. Jess Hayes, who's the girl that won, was in the dry run and was producing such good content during that they said, right, pull her out. We're going to put her in the main one next week. And there's a girl called Naomi, who was the one that actually got quite a bit of backlash. She was like fairly fit, blonde one. And she was supposed to go in at the start. And they were like, she ended up being just waiting in Mallorca for like 2.5 weeks, ready for her to go in, because she'd been like slipstreamed by this girl who'd been proven to be interesting. But one of the other things, and try and sort of go from start to finish so that I don't miss anything. Before you go out there, you guys might remember this because we were sort of in pretty good contact when I went out. I went out and spent, everybody does, all of the starting cast, spend a week of media lockdown in Mallorca, in the south coast of Mallorca, with a chaperone who doesn't let you out of their sight 24 hours a day for a full week before you go. So I got picked up on the Sunday morning going in on the Friday, or the Saturday morning going in on the Friday following. And from that moment, did not have phone, laptop, access to the internet, access to friends, knowledge of anything that was going on. And you then are basically kept under lock and key. You're allowed to go out and you can go to the gym and stuff like that. But each cast member has like a geo-fenced area that they're allowed to move within.
So you can't interact with other...
There's no chance that they would be out having a coffee and you'd bump into that person. Right. And the reason that they have you on media lockdown is twofold. Firstly, so that you are beginning to get conditioned, you get a bit of a tan, you start to chill out, you start to think about what's sort of coming up, so they've got control over you, so that you can go and do media obligations when you need to. You've got an interview with Reveal magazine later on, and then we're going to do some press shots, and then we're going to do whatever. The other thing is so that they can start to reveal stuff about the cast members to online and to the public back in the UK without any fear of you seeing it.
All right.
So if I was to go into a corner shop, I wouldn't be allowed to go in without my chaperone.
What, and he makes sure he does. He's
It's
like going around.
it's to
Yeah,
make
like
sure,
that, so you
yeah,
can't
exactly,
see it.
to make
let's
sure
just
that,
have a look at your phone.
exactly.
Just quickly
Oh,
Google
that's
myself.
2015.
Wow.
And we had slots in the gym. So I was in at 8 a.m, which was fine for me because I train on the morning. But yeah, we have slots at like 8 a.m. until 9, and then a half an hour window where the next person would go through. And I didn't know
They've
this
got
at the
you
time.
fully on lockdown then. That's incredible.
Can't watch TV.
It's no TV. I took like a hard drive out with me and was able. That was the first time. I've said this before. It's the first time that I finished a book because I had no distractions. And
What did you do?
so sunbathed a lot, trained a lot. I was in a deficit, so I hated my life a lot. Which was I just thought about food. No, it was good. It was honestly, that week was probably one of the most liberating I've had. If you think about it, you don't have to think about.
You don't have to be anywhere else other than exactly where you are.
You can be
There's
as
nothing
present
else to
as
do.
possible with no sense of guilt that
But
you're
as long
not
as you
doing
can
something
let go
else.
of the fact that like this is a weird situation, I've got a chaperone and so on. But once the novelty of that's gone, it's like I can just sit and read.
I found it incredibly liberating. I think a lot of the guys I know that were cast when I was there struggled a bit more. If you are naturally social, heavily social, you're really going to struggle because it's just you and this person. And for the most part, they've got tasks that they need to be doing because they're still at work. It's just that they're at work whilst babysitting you and making sure that you don't run and grab a cup.
So it's an introvert's dream, but
Well, it was perfect for me, right?
yeah.
Well, not really, because you've got someone watching you the whole time.
Thankfully, the
You don't have to
chaperone
talk
that I
to them,
had.
though.
No, you don't. You don't.
It's like being in a taxi. Like, you can talk to them if you want to, but like I would give an Uber driver a 5-star rating if they just didn't talk to me.
Would you want a hello and a goodbye?
Maybe, but I'm not
I'm the
that
same,
fussed.
actually. I hate forced low-level interaction with people.
Yeah. I don't know.
Which is why either of us on Love Island, I think honestly, I think I would become clinically depressed. With, like not with the pre bit, just the actual.
Pre-bit was great.
Yeah.
Can we go back? Is there any chance of going back?
Come back and be like, wow, loved it.
Can I have my chaperone
The
again?
bit before the Love Island was fantastic, but
Yeah.
then they put me in this villa with loads of people.
I had to say things and speak, and it was
So I would pay
Generate a love interest.
to see you generate a love.
They instructed me, and then they had an army of cameramen outside the door. And
I'd pay to see you in Love Island.
I would love to see you.
Can you not speak to the right people to get? Actually, no, don't, because it'll.
you'd have to keep any like rope or paracetamol away from me because
Rope. God.
Why do you think that you wouldn't?
I've already had beyond the limit of paracetamol today. Why do I think
really?
Why do you think you wouldn't do very well if you were on a reality TV show?
it's so that I think it would be a personality clash to be the most diplomatic way of saying it. Like having seen the first episode, none of the people.
Did you finish the first episode?
No. See, I couldn't even finish the episode, so I feel like
have
having
you
to
seen
spend 6 weeks with those people.
More than 5 minutes.
Yeah,
more
just
than
like
10?
7 minutes.
It was.
Having seen the first episode, what you mean
I
is
mean, of the first episode, 1 minute.
I've
Of
got a
it.
flavour of it.
Yeah, not having completed the first episode.
okay.
I've seen it. Yeah,
So
couldn't do it.
we'll get onto that in a second. So other stuff that's kind of cool, I guess. If you're in Big Brother, you'll have seen this, I guess, or it's quite heavily alluded to that they never know that there's other people around and that the cameramen like don't interact with them and they go and change shit in the house overnight. Mm-hmm. They do make amends, like if there's a date or whatever going on the next morning, they'll lay the table overnight. That sort of stuff will happen. But you're very aware without being conscious. You're very conscious without being aware of the production process going on. So you know that there's 70 cameras. So if we're chatting right now, there'll be a little camera under the table there, looking at me. There'd be a little one over there underneath the lamp. there'd be
so you can see them all.
Yeah, little sort of bulb CCTV ones, but they're very, very well placed. So they're just innocuous, just slotted around the same way that you would have like a home security system.
Right.
What do you mean conscious but not aware?
So the second part of that is that there's guys with fucking bazookas, like the real, like looking at Jodie Marsh from 3 miles away ones, like on the beach, one of them like
I see
sun photographer ones. There's those, and they're in key positions that have got like the biggest field of vision around the garden, and those ones, there's a man under a hood, like looking through that and moving around. And as you're walking past, you
see him like panning.
Yeah,
following
and you can. All right, mate. They're like told to not.
Speak to me.
Yeah, they're told not to talk to you, and if you do, they come over the tannoy and they tell you off. So
Chris, please stop socialising.
exactly. There's a tannoy system where they tell you off for doing shit, so they don't need to send someone in every time.
It's so disciplinarian.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I don't think anyone who watches the show would believe is that it's really, really fucking boring. And that's not me being facetious or in any way. It's anyone that's on it would agree. You get to see 45 minutes, 40 minutes out of a day.
From multiple
and that's the
people
best bit.
as well.
Yeah, from multiple people's lives. So times that by 14.
Yeah.
So you're talking like, 350 hours of life.
So you've probably got like a good bit every 24 hours.
Well, it's more about
your highlight.
It's more about your experience, not about the end result that goes on TV. It's more about what you experience.
Well, yeah.
So okay, you will like experience a good bit.
You've had like, whoa, that was a cracking moment. Cracking 30 seconds.
Right, now let's get back to the remaining like 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 30 seconds of my day.
No entertainment.
But no, because you've got no phone.
Can't bring a book in.
Couldn't bring a book in. No, of course not. They were allowed the girl who was the born again Christian on my series was allowed to bring a Bible in, and I thought, well, I've got the selfish gene. Richard Dawkins. Any chance that I could bring this militant atheism? No, not allowed. So yeah, there's all the cameras around, and you are very conscious, like I say, of what's going on, but very quickly also adapt to the situation. A lot of the stuff's done behind one-way mirrors. So there's a mirror above the kitchen, there's a mirror in the girls' changing rooms, there's mirrors around, and behind that there's a lot of stuff that's going on as well with cameras and stuff. Obviously that's completely oblivious to.
Not aware of that.
And the little ones can just swivel around and you kind of don't know. You're always mic'd up. There'll be a sound guy that'll come in twice a day, morning and night, and change your batteries out. So
wow, you don't sleep with a microphone on.
You have to have it next to your bed, but the second you get up, even if you want to go to the bathroom,
straight on.
Put it on, and they'll come over the tannoy. Chris, you haven't got your microphone on.
Oh wow!
Fuck. Okay, go back.
Is it like a?
It's like an elastic band thing that's then got that you clip the thing onto,
and then that comes down to
bum bag that you've got pretty much at all times, which isn't waterproof.
So you want to get
and is worth like each one's worth like 250 quid. So you got to be
waterproof bum bags. Gap in the market.
Yeah.
14 sales per year. So, the fact that you've got to get 45 minutes of content out of a full day inevitably means that they need to push and hurry the storylines along a lot.
Got to sort of poke you with a stick a little bit.
Yes, they need to expedite. They need to expedite what's happening. Like they can't have a 14-day wooing period where someone finally plucks up the courage to ask to hold someone else's hand. Like, it needs to happen now.
So how do they encourage that? You said when they take you aside, for example, is that eliciting your opinion, or is it like, oh, do you want to go?
Go on, that's really like you
give it to her. Go on.
You're running out like, all right then, come on.
And then there's a fluffer. The fluffer comes in.
Oh god.
No, it's not. It's more about. I think everyone's conscious. Another thing to consider is everybody is conscious that they're there. A lot of the people are there to get time on TV. You haven't gone on TV to not be on TV. So what they term producing content is doing something which will make the edit, or doing something which will contribute to the edit, the final production of that particular episode. What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at?
Just imagining how often Yusuf would be on the edit. I mean, I feel like it would be constantly.
So I'd imagine, like, let's say people are having a chat, and then someone goes like, and then they'll have to be like, okay, chop that. Yusuf surprised, save it as a file, and then like slip it into other conversations. So because what they do in like X Factor, for example, where they splice audience reactions with things that they're not reacting to.
Can we do that on this?
Well, just chop in some...
I just want, like, whenever we say something, to switch to go...
we need a bank of, like, 7 emotions, and we can just throw them in whenever.
Chris, furious. Johnny, indignant.
So that's a really good point about them noting stuff down, actually. You sort of alluded to them transcribing things. You will have someone listening to your channel on the mic almost 24 hours a day. And I came out, it's really, really weird. So while I was in there, the majority of the conversations that you have to be about what's going on. And if you begin to talk about stuff from the outside world, common friends that you've got that aren't in the villa, they'll come over the tannoy and they'll tell you, Islanders, can you please stop talking about the outside world? Thank you.
Really? So you actually have more freedom in most prisons than...
Yeah.
Like, you thought that's thought police. Like, that is
in every prison.
So Orwellian. Like, anything... you can...
You're right. It's when you say it like that, it sounds really terrible. But yeah,
so you can't. There's no entertainment. You have to just be with yourself and with the other people, and you can't talk about anything apart from
the inane activities of
what everyone else is doing, without any entertainment, without any outside.
This is what I mean when I say that it's boring. Like it sounds stupid to say that you're in this £10 million villa with half-naked girls. But it's really boring. Like, there's only so many times that you can talk about Omar and that chat that he had last night and how he proper mugged her off, bruv. Like, how many times can you say that? Because nothing else has happened because there's a reflection period. Do you understand? There's these peaks of activity that are then followed by an echo chamber of it happening. And once that's been completed, you need to wait for the next thing to happen. But during that time, you can only talk about stuff that's going on in the villa.
Do people drink alcohol?
So I thought when I went on, I was expecting it to be like X on the Beach or Geordie Shore. I had a lot of experience of being around the guys from Geordie Shore running club nights in Newcastle. And I thought, brilliant. Days in the sun, nights getting pissed. This is going to be sweet. Got there and you are limited to 2 drinks.
Really?
1 beer, 1 wine, or any combination thereof.
It's weird because it's like they're trying to create this incubation chamber, but they're not putting any accelerants in there either. It's like...
I think, to be honest, the alcohol thing, although I wanted to stab someone at the time for the restrictions, looking back, I can see why they do it. Because if you look at the groove that Love Island's carved out for itself in programming, it isn't Geordie Shore, it's not X on the Beach. It's not as...
Stayed classy.
It's not as fluffy as something like Made in Chelsea or Towie. But it's not actually all that far off when you look at it. High production value, everyone in there. Yeah, there's arguments and stuff like that, but it's not because someone's out of control. You know what I mean?
It's because of all the rules in the tannoy. Like no alcohol, no red foods, no cheese, no mismatching socks. Like
no brown food touching beige food.
Oh,
you'd be fucked.
I'd be
ruined,
terrible,
ruined. So yeah, the one of the problems that you come across is that you're just bored. Like you've got nothing to talk about, and then like you say, you're restricted on how many times you can talk about the same situation. But one of the things that does happen, like when they've got their content for the day, there's a little bit less pressure. And because the live show on the year that we did it was on a Thursday night, I think it was either a Thursday or a Friday night. No, it was a Thursday night. What it meant was that there's no show on a Friday and a recap show on a Saturday. So you had Thursdays off completely. And that was liberation. You could do whatever you wanted. And
Are they still filming on Thursdays?
They're still filming, but what they say is, look guys, just don't do anything. Don't do anything exciting. The cameras are rolling, but we don't want to put it in. So just as long as you guys are happy to talk about back home and stuff like that. But 6 days a week of not being able to do that is actually quite trying.
I wonder how much footage they'd actually take from that off day. Because I'd imagine once the pressure's off.
Pretty much not.
Really?
Well, because one of the problems is there's no show on a Friday and then there's a recap show on a Saturday. I think the schedule's slightly different, but they've still got time off. When you don't have a day of broadcasting and each episode is 1 day, how would you fit stuff from an extra day into that 1 day? Do you understand? You can't pad that in.
But they could just use it later or something. I bet
They weren't that contrived. Another one of the things. So this was one of my fears right before I went on. Remember that Jade Goody incident with Shilpa Shetty, where she was like, "She should go home," and they were burning effigies of pigs that looked like Jade Goody in the streets. It was on Big Brother, and Shilpa Shetty was this like big Bollywood star, and I had in the back of my head, just don't do something that's that newsworthy. And obviously, you're like, I've never said anything like that in my life, but fuck knows what could happen. And then with the editing as well, and because you never get to see what the final edit looks like. And when we were the first season, like going on now, you understand. You know how it's going to be cut, what the sort of flow is going to be, what kind of end result they're looking for. It's quite fluffy, right? It's quite nice. They're not trying to make anyone look like a tit. Whereas before you go in, you don't know if it's some character assassination waiting in the wings. And I was pretty terrified.
And as you said, it's like selective editing, such a... So what I'm interested in now is you said... I was looking forward to there being a bit more alcohol and a bit more freedom to. So clearly, from that perspective, you weren't afraid to let loose a little bit with your inhibitions and say whatever. Whereas on the other side, like, not that you are at risk of like saying something racist or whatever, but do you think it's because you're self-employed that you didn't have a sense of I better not say something that might have a repercussion or recourse later on?
Yeah, that was definitely a big deal. Of the guys on my season, I think if you discount me as company director from being self-employed, i.e. not on temporary work, site work, I think there was only 2 other people who didn't either work for their family or were self-employed as model, labourer, something similar. And
two people who were employed.
Yes, outside of that paradigm.
It doesn't matter then. Doesn't matter if you have a job.
Well, it doesn't matter to them if they're
But the point is, you can go back on site tomorrow. You can pretty much say anything.
Everyone will be like, "Hey,
mate, I can't believe that you got your dick out." Like, do you know what I mean? It does
totally fine. Yeah. Whereas if you return to KPMG, you're like,
oh, I see. I thought you were saying the other way around. I thought you were saying better to be self-employed.
Well, from this perspective, yeah,
it's just more protective for the brand. And that was you're right. But the guys that were on there, I honestly think that a lot of them would have acted exactly the same anyway. So it's human character that shows through, regardless of what position they're going to go back to at the end. But yeah, I was conscious of that, and I think that you can't get around the fact that for all that they try and make it really, really naturalistic, like you're on fucking TV.
You're on TV, but you're not on like Fox Network. You're on something which, at least, as you said,
it mimics a natural environment, right? But that's the goal.
But and everyone else is going through the same experience at the same time, which takes the pressure off. It's
a little bit. But one of the things that you want to do is bond over the alien nature of the experience, and you can't break the fourth wall like that either because you're not allowed to talk about it. So one of the first things we wanted to do, I remember on the first and the second day, all of us wanted to do was talk about the last week we'd done in lockdown. Because we were like, where were you living? Oh, I was living here. I was on the port. Oh, I went to the gym at this time. Oh, did you go and get frozen yogurt from this place? Yeah. Because I've never met this person before, but you've got some weird common experience that both of you have gone through incredibly recently. And you're like, this is
and you're not allowed to bond over it. This
is exactly what I want to talk about. Personally, for me, that was exactly what I wanted to talk about. It's like, I wanted to discuss my experience, how I felt, I wanted to understand that. Why are you laughing? What are you laughing at?
Because I'm thinking instead, you're like, right, here I am with this person. There's these weird boundaries around what we can and can't talk about. You're like, do you like lemons? What's a safe top like?
Yeah, it was a little bit difficult.
What do you think of the sun today?
The sun is bright and yellow. I like it.
I think so too. Let's be friends now.
Yeah, it made it difficult to. It made it difficult for me to be authentic with that because I wasn't tremendously interested in what was going on in the villa, and I think that made me a bad Islander to a degree. It made me a bad castmate, but I think a lot of people are like that. And then there's just varying degrees of playing the game or forgetting it. You mentioned the sun. Another really interesting thing is that we do not have any idea of the time. So when you live in the villa, they do not give you the time.
So did you wake up? So yeah, even retrospectively, like there's at no point do you know what time it is.
No, never. So you have the phones that they give you, the mobile phones that they have on the show, all got the wrong and different times on. The clocks on the wall all have the wrong time on. You get into the car, the driver's car, to go on a date or to go out on your day off. Driver's changed his watch. Clock on there has changed.
Why?
I'm not too sure. I'd be quite interested to know. The reason that I think is that by breaking up the routine, it allowed them to determine the schedule of the day. And it meant that they can choose, right, this is when you're getting up, this is when you...
It's so intense. Like, I feel like I spent 10 days in a monastery in December, and it was way more freedom than any of this. Like,
a little bit, and you weren't allowed to speak.
Wasn't yeah, and I was...
Or look at people.
At least...
And you had more freedom.
At least you weren't allowed to speak the things you wanted to.
Yeah, which is worse. Good point, actually.
So, yeah,
you can have really asinine, pointless conversations, but you can still talk. That's all you can say.
Weird. And then I'm hearing this and I'm like, bloody hell, like you'd be in some like Norwegian high security prison and at least you get a TV.
How much of... So like, I've watched a bit more than 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I find most interesting is the version of you that you see on there, to me, seems like maybe a small part of you that you've had to like, right, I need to bring out everything I've got of this side of my personality.
Yeah.
For 3 weeks.
But do you know what it's like? It's like you as quite a nice-mannered, intellectual guy who's chartered accountant and all the rest of it, but under the right circumstances can fill himself with adrenaline and pick 310 kilos off the ground. That's a very, very minor part that's actually probably not that similar to the rest of you, but you do actually seem to have a bit of a speciality in it, and you've been able to...
I see.
So the psychologist is saying that you don't have a single personality because you are never a consistent being throughout the day. You're probably 14 or 15 sub-personalities that you draw on depending on the context. So you have like a going into the corner shop personality, or like a speaking to the waiter bit, or like speaking with your friends, or being at work, and all these things are just different masks that you put on and take off depending on the circumstance. So maybe you had that available because of the environment you work in. You're like, I've got to put that one on because I'm with these kind of people today. So, or for the next 6 weeks.
I think that's a really good analogy. And, you know, I wanted to try and we are making this podcast about the process and about the show itself. If someone doesn't understand know me, know my background, it might not make as much sense. But I do think that there's definitely people that I've seen in other seasons. Sophie Graydon, who was in season 2, I know is cut from a similar cloth as myself. A little bit mindful, a little bit introverted, keen sort of intellectual interests and a bit academic and stuff like that. And I know that she struggled similarly as well. Right. And she's been there, done it, played the game with modelling and done like sort of little bits of, not glamour, but, you know, sort of like bikini shoots and stuff like that, and been in that world, nightlife world. I'm club promoter for 10 years. So my trade is putting these people, I'm putting people similar to those who I was in the villa with into nightclubs.
Yeah.
But I only have to deal with that atmosphere for 20 seconds at a time, because they want to go inside and get drunk, and I get to like do a single rep max, 1 rep max,
and then
max effort,
and then go home, chill out, and
and then
it's a bit like if you do a job interview, anyone can convince somebody for 20 minutes that they're not a psychopath, and then the problem is
what do you do for the next couple of years?
Yeah.
But this was one of the problems that I'd had when I went in there, and I sold my story to the producers as one that, looking back now, was me playing their game. Remembering that I managed to get myself on Take Me Out and Love Island within the space of 2.5 years. I know, I understood what they wanted to hear. So if anyone wants me to do a little segment on one of the next life hacks on how to get yourself on reality TV, I can do it.
I think there'll be demand for that.
100%. Well, so do you know what we did? James, who's one of our city managers, the only reason that he wasn't on X on the Beach was because of a operation, like a logistical issue. But he was not even in the UK, and on, I think, about 15 minutes of briefing from me, and like, right, you're going to say this, and you're going to say this, get some stories that are similar to this, and da-da-da-da-da. And that was it. They only needed to see him on Skype twice. And he was
so interested in
and
that.
he was booked. Well, if
so there is a method after all.
Yeah, there's definitely a method, but listeners can think about what do you think producers want to hear? What is it that they're looking for out of people? But so
they don't want people discussing space-time and mindfulness, which is what I know you really want to talk about.
Well, that's what I actually did talk about.
Is it? Well, you're in there.
So I got, on one of the off days, I sat down with Jordan Hulk. Is that the big dude?
Did you previously know him?
No. I knew some of the people that were going in. I'm not going to say how because it'll get someone in trouble. But I worked out how some of the other people... In fact, no, I am going to say. So...
Yes.
You were going to say all along that was the cleverest thing to do.
It wasn't.
Right.
But I've just decided, so fuck it. Marlin, who was on season 2. Did you watch season 2 of Love Island? No, of course you didn't.
So I watched bits of season 2.
Yeah.
So I watched very little of season 1.
Okay, so there was a mixed race girl. I want to say, I'm not too sure where she's from, and I may be butchering this, but it's sort of around Indian heritage. Girl called Marlin, and she's a makeup artist from London. Long and short of it, the very, very first intro, which I know both of you will have seen, where I'm on the plane. Mm-hmm. There's a girl. There's a girl that walks past, and I give it. Hey.
That was Marlin.
That was Marlin, and I was on Take Me Out with her 2 years before.
Right.
Then she messaged me as soon as I got off and said, I'm going to go and film another one of these later on. Do you want me to tell you who it is? I was like, fucking right, Stu. Thank you very much. She went and then filmed, so anyone who's watching season 1 on Netflix, rewind. There's a girl that walks in to the first scene where Lewis is in bed, and he's in bed with a girl, but there's a girl's like bum, and she's in like sort of like sexy pajamas, and she walks away really, really tanned. That's her as well. And then she went to go and do a third one, and it was with the Italian twins that get in this like fancy Lamborghini. So 12 hours later, I was able to work out 2 of the people, or 2 of the sets of people that were on the show.
I see.
Although she was, she gave me some cheat codes, so cheers.
Backward, BBA.
Triangle, square.
Exactly. Well, it was unlimited lives, omnipotence, and...
Car drives on water.
Yeah, it was.
The best one.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Best one.
Great.
So, where are we? I'm trying to think about what else there was that I've missed. Oh, yeah, so we were talking about the space-time thing. So, I'd recently watched Interstellar. I'd read the book. Kip Thorne, who was the consultant astronomer a consultant physicist on the show, and he did a partner book to it, The Science Behind Interstellar. I got half an hour with Jordan, who was one of the older lads on the show, and we were laid in the bedroom just chatting away, and I was telling him about what I'd learned in the book about time dilation from being close to a black hole. Mm-hmm. When I came out and then went back the next day to film my "It's Chris, see you later on, thanks for the this and this," I was sat in the canteen of Basra, of all of the corrugated iron things, and there was a man who put his rifle down next to me and
told you war stories.
Yeah. And 2 guys came and sat over, and they said, "Hey mate, Chris, I'm so-and-so. All right, okay. We're 2 of the sound engineers. We were one of the people that was listening to your mic. So we listened to like pretty much everything you've said for the last 3.5 weeks while you've been in
surreal.
There. You know that thing about gravity time dilation. Could you tell us a little bit more?" I was like, fucking hell. That's the most innocuous little discussion that I had. But there is someone listening to the Islanders at all times. There is nothing that goes under the radar. And there's a lot of stuff that was said in there, like an awful lot of talk like about partying and drugs and stuff that would be libelous. Like if they decided to put together an absolute character assassination of anyone, done in a heartbeat. Because especially when you have people that are very outgoing, charismatic and kind of extroverted. The tiny little slip-ups I was concerned about, they're like fucking 10 a penny. They're just like scattergunning them all over the place.
They could ruin you if they wanted to.
They could do, but I guess those guys were so ballsy that they were able to push, they were able to discount or any fear of that coming up, which led to them actually being able, their content was so much more energetic and so much more engaging.
Do you think it was consciously discounting it, or they would just didn't care?
Fuck it.
Yeah.
I genuinely just think that most of the guys that were doing that just didn't give a shit.
I don't think it's like a consideration. I think it's just...
That's them, but that's why they're good cast members.
Yeah, definitely.
They're good cast members because they don't have that filter. Whereas for me, I was very mindful of the oddness of the experience a lot of the time.
So we have this experience quite a bit, and I imagine you will be now increasingly with the podcasts, where you'll have said something in an article that you wrote in 2011 and forgotten about it, and then you'll get a message from someone about like a line in it, there's something that you did, and you're like, oh my god, I've got to be careful about what I put in the public domain because it might be a recommendation.
It's out there forever.
Yeah. And it's never something cringy, but it's like something, a recommendation that you made that you maybe no longer agree with.
Yeah.
That someone's like, oh, hey, 3 minutes 42 on your video, and you're like,
fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've never had that before, and the podcast has been incredibly liberating for me to actually finally speak the truth forward about stuff that I'm interested in after so long of kind of doing this. And you know, it must sound, or it might sound like I didn't enjoy the process of going on Love Island. I really did, but I didn't enjoy it for the reasons of like being lad, being in there, the little bit of adoration and social equity that you get coming out. I enjoyed the experience for the experience. I was transfixed by the production process. I wanted to know how all of the rushes worked and why there were all of these different cameras and stuff like that. And that to me was really, really interesting. That made me it didn't make me the best Islander because I was far too detached from the actual narrative and of what was going on inside of it. So yeah, it was.
You've experienced something that maybe 50 people ever
probably in total
have experienced
for the length of time that I was there.
Which is hard to do. Like, there's not that many experiences like that you could that anyone will ever experience.
No,
but you're right. Like if you're living there in a kind of square peg thing where you're enjoying a slightly different aspect of the whole thing, it's like coming in here, recording the podcast, but just being like transfixed by the colours in the room.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, great, but it's, you know, you might still hit a couple of
commonalities.
Yeah, you do. You end up striking out a little bit more, unfortunately. I think, you know, if you are listening or watching now, you're on that one.
I'm on that one.
Yeah. Well, but you're on the one that's facing you. You're on the camera that's facing you.
That one looks like it's facing me. Does it look like...
Well, in that case, there's two facing you.
Maybe they're all facing you.
They're all just looking at the trousers.
Have you thought that because you're Egyptian, this is just surveillance?
This is all just a contrived
the government.
way.
They're finally getting you.
They've got you.
The Egyptian government.
This has just been facial ID, constant.
Oh. So they've got a 3D
mock-up. Yeah, exactly.
Like on the films where they have the spinning head.
They can replicate you now.
Oh, God.
Be a nightmare for you, wouldn't it?
Terrible.
So a couple of other stuff that was things that were really, really interesting. You get days out of the villa. So the Thursday or the day off, the day before the day there's no airing, we actually got taken out of the villa. And we were, one of the villa producers took us out there and we had a member of security, but they were like, right, we're going to go to the most non-British beach that we can find. It'll be like, it was Spanish and German beach.
So no one recognises you.
Yeah, exactly. Because the show was being aired at the time, right? I don't even know if they'll be allowed to do this now because the show's so much bigger. And I don't even know if you'd be able to get away from that. But
it's just so weird, just sat on a beach, a bunch of German people.
German and Spanish. So what had happened, the producer had taken us out there and had said, right, lads, I'm telling you now, if you do anything to cause a scene, you're all fucked. We're like, okay, no worries. For me, I was like, I'm out of the villa. I can talk about what I want. They took me to a corner shop and they bought me sweets. Like, I'm fucking sound.
I don't want to
leave me be.
This is it. Like, you know, you tie an elephant to a stake for so long and then you're like, I'm going to extend the rope by a centimetre today. And it's like, yes,
yeah,
massive, you know.
Yeah, that's how But so that was me, and that was my level of probably neuroticism to a degree about the experience. Right, we've bought you a football, but just have a kick around amongst yourselves. In the time that she said, have a kick around amongst yourselves, John, who's now on Towie, John Clark, had found 5 German guys and had said, all right, lads, fancy a kick around? Yeah. All right, boys, we got a game over here. John, and his producer calls him over. John, look, I do not want any hard tackles or anything. I can't believe that I'm letting you do this. If someone breaks their leg and I have to explain that on the show, how the fuck am I going to do? No, don't worry, lad. It'll be sweet, yeah? It'll be fine. So, John, no antagonising them. No, nothing else. No, honestly, that
chanting about Hitler and stuff.
Don't fucking worry, all right? It'll be sweet. Boys, get over here.
2 World Wars and 1 World Cup.
John, what did I tell you? No,
what did I just say? And then he literally, in the time that you'd taken,
was really good. That's the most
Where did you learn that? Where did you learn that?
It was there's an advert for when Germany were hosting the World Cup, and
what's the advert for?
I'm not sure, but a bunch of Germans get in the lift. Again, the guy had been singing it, and the Germans come in, and he shuts up, and then and his son's there, and then he starts singing. And he just puts his mouth in his mouth.
So what actually happened was she went to the bathroom and came back to find us stood on the beach with our hands on our chests, singing "God Save the Queen." God,
so not far off.
Gracious good. Boys,
stop it!
And then so and it just went from there. We won 3-2.
Nice.
FYI,
no injuries.
No injuries.
Good.
No, but did
what surface? Beach.
On beach.
So he was saying, I can't explain a broken leg. Is it like if the next day on Love Island, someone's got
a broken leg and we didn't have any fucking footage of it?
I see.
Could you imagine?
How did that happen?
I turned over in bed and
one of the main. But even that would have been recorded. They turned over in bed. It's recorded 24 hours a day.
You just can't explain it.
So some of the places that there aren't cameras, apart from when you've got
pretend you don't have a broken leg for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Just walking around just like.
Just loaded up on tramadol. You'd be fucking lucid then, wouldn't you? Could you imagine?
Yeah, true. I think just print out a version of their face and stick it on, just smiling, so that they can grimace.
They can map you.
Underneath. Yeah,
map you on.
No, they got a 3D model.
What's that called? Deep something. Deep fake.
Is it?
It's the
the
new thing that they. So with I think it was you need 18 minutes of footage of someone's face just talking in a normal thing,
and you can transpose it over.
So they got one of Obama and just.
I've seen that.
Freaky,
yeah.
Oh God.
So yeah, another one of the times when where there isn't cameras is in the toilet, which is really nice.
Not in the toilet.
So there's no cameras in the toilet.
I thought you said in the changing rooms.
Oh, there's no changing rooms. There's a bedroom.
You said
the changing rooms.
Listen back to the podcast. You said there is a one-way mirror in the female changing rooms.
Oh, sorry. I was referring to the walk-in wardrobe that they have.
Oh, I see.
Like a changing room as opposed to a place where a locker room, I suppose you call it.
Where they're flossing the towel and
exactly. Well, that's all I did. But the shower and the bath are both open. There's no doors. And there's cameras pointing directly at the showers.
Really? So do you just shower in trunks, or you just?
Well, the girls chose to. The lads didn't really mind so much, but the girls showered in bikinis. And if you walked in at the wrong time, you could be. It might spoil some of the upcoming novelty, I guess.
So people can still hear you in the toilet, so they can hear them.
But no, there's a door on the toilet.
But you're still wearing the mic?
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, yeah. So you would have full...
You're now thinking, oh my God.
Well, there's 2 guys who've just been sat there listening to Chris poo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I've gone from both ends of the spectrum, haven't I? From gravity time dilation to shit grunts.
Big poos.
Yeah. Shit grunts.
Were you ever worried about...
I'd be talking to them. Be like,
see,
guys, I'm about to go for a poo, sorry.
You're in a villa, it's hot, relaxed, lots of women not wearing very much. You're just wearing trunks.
Yeah.
Ever a risk, big erection. Ever worry about that?
No, not really.
No.
No.
Is it just never crossed your mind?
No, it didn't. I did sneak Viagra in there. So
Just in case.
Just in case. I mean, you do not. I mean, John Clark went soft on camera, and they made a joke about it, and I was like, "Well, mate, if you'd mentioned to me, could have sorted you out." So basically, before you go in, the security guy will go and he checks through all your bag, and this is at the end of the lockdown week, so you're getting ready to go in, and they'll go through your luggage and they'll take out everything that you've got. Too much branding on this T-shirt. Sorry, mate, not going to be able to do that. This pair of scissors, we'll give you a replacement pair that's in there, like sharp pairs of scissors and stuff like that. Remembering that everyone's undergone a very strict psychometric
I was going to ask
analysis.
if they had one for you.
Very, very strict one. Any history of depression, any history of anxiety, how does this make you feel? How will it make you feel if you can't speak to your friends and family? How's this going to... And then the most rigorous sexual health check that you've ever heard of in your life. By... Is it
fingers up bum? Fingers anywhere? No fingers.
No. Little umbrella.
No.
Balls? No fingers on balls?
Fingers on balls.
Umbrella?
Why are you so obsessed?
I was just wondering. You said it was the most rigorous you could ever imagine. So, like, I'm thinking,
in terms of sexual health history and stuff.
Oh,
like that,
I see.
like,
They're not doing loads of like weird.
Didn't have me hanging upside down by my foreskin.
Say, Chris.
Yeah.
None of that. Do they just like look over your history and go, "What have you and haven't you had?"
Fine.
Did have, but it's fine now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Is it Harley Street in London? Where there's like all of the big
posh,
private
posh place.
Yeah.
So I was like, you go in there and it's outside. It's like Ferrari, Maserati, Lamborghini.
Wow.
And went up to the top floor of this sort of townhouse, this innocuous looking little townhouse. And there's just this woman in a tight dress with massive VPL. And you don't know what VPL is, do you?
I just, it was like visible pant line.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
You worked it out.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's weird that you had to deduce it rather than know it. Is it in your mind palace?
Just third left.
It's the social interaction module. It takes a while to load.
But the bootstrap program is... It's in behind spending money, isn't it? So,
because I got the free trial and then I had to try it.
It's light.
You're like, I'm not paying for that. I'll find the cheap version.
There's a 2-second delay. I'll deal with it.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had that and we've gone in. Yeah, you're not allowed these scissors. You're not allowed this, that, and the other. And what I did was I cut a hole in the lining of my toiletries bag and slipped 5 Viagra in there, just in case, just for the lads.
It's very clever as well to have done that.
So Steve, security guy Steve, if you're watching, check the lining of people's toiletries.
How did you? What you cut a hole in it and then sealed it up again?
No, but like he's not. It's not like going through fucking customs. Like he's just checking to make sure that you don't have anything sharp or stuff that's got too much branding on. So it was fairly. It was like rigorous, or it was thorough, should I say? But like not. It wasn't crazy. But yeah, like that was. I guess that was my experience. When you leave, you are taken to a really nice couples hotel, and deposited there for the night. You go back the next day. They give you like a checking out protocol about the press may contact you. These are the things you should and shouldn't do. Here is a contact for management. Here is a contact for this, that, and the other. The experience is sort of pretty well rounded considering the volume that they need to look after. There's people coming and going almost every week, and the level of care that you're given.
Yeah, so much planning.
Big system, isn't it?
It's remembering that this was when we'd done it. It was the first time they'd
ever done it.
This was the first and ever of that kind, and yeah, it was. I was impressed with how slick it was, and now obviously they'll have refined it in over the course of 3 years. It will be like a fucking machine now.
Yeah. So what would you do differently if you were going
exactly what I was going to ask
on the next one? Is it in a month, did you say?
It'll be in a month, yeah. So one of the reasons I think that it's been put on Netflix now, only season 1 and 2, get people excited, ready for the next season to come out, which will be at the end of the month. I know some of the cast that are going on. There's some pretty cool guys, a couple of guys from up north again as well.
Cool.
So what would I do differently? The experience of going on Love Island for me was the beginning of a journey that allowed me to realise who I really am. Now that sounds like a sort of this really sort of pithy statement about I just went on there and I was just myself. but I wasn't. So I went on there and I played a role.
So it created, you realised the divide or the
massively
the gap.
And what I also got exposed to was a fatal dose of what that particular network of people are truly like. And when I see party boys and party girls in the front door of a club, I'm able to box them up in a category that doesn't have as much of an effect on me. And they could have played the role with me for 20 seconds as well, right? But they weren't.
You don't see them 24 hours. So you don't know.
Yeah, but when you live with them for 3.5 weeks, like you're like, right, okay, you are really different to me, and it's fucking apparent. And that, so if I was to go in again, what I would do differently is I would be myself. I don't regret the way that I acted on there because it's allowed me to do stuff like this podcast that I love, all of the pursuits I'm going on at the moment for mindfulness training and speaking the truth, which I think is a real big deal because I lied through my teeth to get myself on there to play a role of someone that I wasn't particularly, but someone that I knew I could play the role of.
Would being yourself get you kicked out earlier or later, do you think?
Later, 100%.
Okay.
I could go on, I'm pretty certain that I could go on as the person that I am now, even in that season, and providing that I didn't get stitched with the edit, I think I would have a pretty good chance of staying on until the end. And one of the reasons is, and this is for anyone who's considering to go on reality TV, there's the lack of authenticity shows through really, really starkly because you run out of things that you can think to say and situations that you can think to create. Whereas that's not how we operate. Our personalities aren't consciously manifested on a second by second basis. They appear as a byproduct of you existing and having an ego. And
you don't have to sit and create like, well, what might be interesting to say in 10 minutes. What
would Love Island Chris say now? Like that's not the way it would work.
Must have been tiring to do that.
It was fatiguing. But again, for that, like I'm incredibly grateful. Like the opportunity was unreal, and as you say, like it's really rare. Like I'm going to be very unlikely that something similar is going to happen again, and I really enjoyed it. But like the experience for me, like when someone says, "Oh, what was the best thing about being on Love Island?" And it's like you came out with the followers, you blue tick on Twitter, and I got a shitload of birds, and I'm sat there like, oh well. When I came out, like top 3 things probably that happened from Love Island in no particular order. One of them is that when I came out on the south coast of Mallorca, it's a really, really good spot for stargazing. I'm not really too sure why. And I came out and it was the night Dad left and it was kind of like emotional and stuff. If anyone's seen the episode where I leave and I'm like a little bit upset because I'm leaving the guys who I've got this bond with, and no matter how invested or not I was in the experience, it was an intense experience, and there was a flooding of emotion when I left, and there was a lot of bromance like in there, and I had this connection with Max and stuff, who was the guy who went on to win, and saying goodbye to him was pretty tough, and a few other bits, and I had this sort of a bit of a whirlwind because no one had been prepared when I left. We didn't know it was an eviction that night, so it was kind of just fuck, I gotta go pack my bags, and oh, fuck, right, okay, see you later on guys, and then I was gone, and I finished and went back to the couple's hotel that I said you get put up in this beautiful 5-star, kind of like Sandals resort thing where they're all like individual little huts. And anyway, I'd finished. I'd finally been given a big beer as opposed to like a 330ml one. And I had this big beer and I was like sat outside and there's just crickets going on. It's like finally like midnight, completely clear, warm.
Not mic'd up anymore.
Not mic'd up, on my own. Able to be with my thoughts, and you haven't got your phone back yet because they've still got 24 hours until what's just happened airs. So you've got one day of loo still to go. And having this beer, and I looked up and I could just see the full Milky Way, like from horizon to horizon, in this silent couple of crickets, and I could just see this like sprinkling of like stardust of the brightest I've ever seen it. Thousands of stars. Why is that one of the things that I liked from Love Island? Do you know what I mean? That wasn't anything to do with the experience, but for me it was very meaningful. And it might sound like a wet conclusion.
No, it's the shift in, or the acceleration. So listening to that Peter Attia podcast, he did a marathon swim back and forth to this island, and he said the most emotional thing is always the change in gear, the shift. And so having swam for however many hours back, like in the water, and then finally to be crawling on land is the most elated, incredible experience, just because of the like, oh my god, I'm on land again.
Yeah.
And I imagine the same thing, like you're looking outside at the sky on your own, no cameras.
Well, as
no
I've
lights.
said, you asked about how I remember the experience, and there's certain elements of it that I was incredibly mindful for. But I am, over time, as memories fade, my appreciation of that situation is degrading, and every year it will continue to degrade. Which is why, if you've tweeted me a question on Twitter, the answers have been probably pretty shoddy, and not because a lot of the situations I can't really remember. But that, the Milky Way above, I can't see a time when I'm not going to remember it.
So it wouldn't have held any. Well, it would have held a lot less meaning if it had just been that situation by itself. It's almost certainly the result of and the ending of an experience that makes you, as Yusuf says, it's the contrast. Because if you'd just been there randomly, having a beer by yourself, you think like, oh, the stars are nice.
Yeah.
Instead of it being like a...
I think there would have been, there would have been an element of that because it was so spectacular. But that was like serious.
I want to know what it was like looking at your phone for the first time.
So I didn't have my phone. I left my phone with my business partner.
Oh, right. So you're processing.
He was looking after guest list texts and all the rest of it. I dropped off my car, my iPad, my laptop, my phone. He had power of attorney on a house purchase that was going through at the time. I was like, I'm going to come back. He's going to have absolutely character assassinated me, given the vendor that's selling me this house another 10 grand just because he can.
Because I'm just imagining like...
You know what, mate? You seem like a nice guy. I'll give you another 10 grand.
50 grand. Just turning on your phone and it just being like...
I mean, the pure admin.
Well, that's what, like,
that
days.
I needed to go through. Yeah. Do you know that when it's your birthday and the day's just spent doing admin? It was like that, but it was like a full week. I can't remember how many messages I came out to, but it was like in the hundreds just on Facebook, which was like just friends. So yeah, the fair bit of admin from that, and then like I say, the for me one of the big takeaways was that I was able to begin a journey that had been highlighted by a contrast of who I was pretending to be while I was there and the role that I was playing, and the understanding that even though you can play that role, that it's not a good pursuit for your spirit. That if you're not living with virtue and you're not speaking the truth forward, I sound like I'm reciting Jordan Peterson here, but it is. And that I think that's one of the reasons why when I started listening to Jordan Peterson, that it struck such a chord with me, because it told me something that I'd known all along, but it was just articulated in a way that was succinct and made sense.
Yeah.
And it's how he ends his book. He says, I hope what I've said has reached the truths that you already knew, but said in a way that you maybe couldn't articulate, or something like that.
Well, that was what it was, and it took a long time. Of obviously, there's a recoil effect from that, and then processing and so on and so forth. But it was definitely, I think, the activation energy that I needed to be able to think, right, okay, you weren't that person. That means there's a problem. Problem requires solution. Let's find a solution. Solution is speak the truth forward. And like you say, if I went back on now, the person that I would come across as would be different. So as a good example, it wasn't put into the edit. Danielle, on the first night that we were there, was asking me a question about something to do with, she pointed at something or said something about the tree or the skies or something like that. And I just reeled off this fact that was something to do with why it was like that. It would have been like the fucking Coriolis effect of the Earth or some shit, whatever it was that I knew the answer to. And then she said, like, something to do with tell me some more facts, you're really clever. And I remember thinking there, fuck, I can't be that person. I can't do the reel off the clever facts. Partly because I felt a level of anxiety. I was a little bit...
just kidding, football pints, lads, way.
fancy a fucking neg on. But again, the thing is that because I knew that I could play that role, I was like, well, sweet, like, you just do it. Just stick to that, because I knew that was safe ground. That had got me on the show, so that would get me through the show.
Rather than revealing the inner Chris.
Yeah.
It's a very unusual conclusion to have come to say, like, I spent some time on Love Island and it catapulted
changed
me
who I was as a
into
person.
authenticity.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many.
Do you think anyone else has had that experience?
I hope so.
Maybe they're all running podcasts now and
just ready to go.
Yeah.
You reckon? But I hope so, man. Like, the guys that are on there, the people that are on there that do well are built for that. Like, you look at like Chris and Kem and the guys that have come off from this year. You don't know who they are, do you?
I do.
You don't know who
I
they
do.
are. No.
So I was pretty much force fed season 3.
Were you? Oh dear.
Just on every
Chinese water torture style
fucking night, isn't it?
Yeah. But I guess that's the problem. If you don't like it, the sheer volume.
There's so much of it.
Yeah.
I think when you look on Netflix of how many
is it? Is it 70 or
I
something?
don't too many. 69 too many for you, sir.
Yeah.
and
69.8.
Mate, that's the problem of having it on the floor.
Oh, that's the problem with it on the floor.
Oh, it's fine as a full can.
So I've been waiting for like well over an hour now to open the second one.
I mean, you could have done that
Right in front of the mic
Right in
as
front
well.
of- yeah,
Just don't do it in front of the mic. But yeah, no, I'm not sure how many people saw it as a mindful experience that catapulted them into living a life closer to speaking truth and virtue. But the guys that go on there that do well are already doing that. It's just their truth.
Yeah, they're not pretending. They're just being.
They are being them. That being said, when you come out, it can be a really unhealthy environment, I think, for a lot of these guys. Like, I know, for instance, again, because I'm close to Sophie, I know that she's had like a couple of like bad experiences. She didn't like the way that she was portrayed. She didn't like the thing that the media was doing to her. One of the problems is that people are going to come out, and the more popular that this TV show gets, the deeper and deeper this sort of stuff's going to get dug. And the more that they want. It wouldn't surprise me if we start to see like Britney Spears 2007-esque breakdowns from the guys that are coming out soon, because there's going to be someone who goes on like
Slips
me.
through the psychological.
Yeah, there's going to be someone who goes on like me and plays a role and then wins or gets to the end and is put on this pedestal and realizes, fuck, the game is over, but I can't take the costume off. And I think it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one, man. Like,
So were you approached by press afterwards as well, or not so much?
Yeah, you get bits and bats. Again, it's my experiences of significant magnitude smaller than the people that are on there now, or that are going to be on this year, and so on and so forth.
I wonder if there'll be another wave now that Netflix is
100%.
rerunning.
I don't know in terms of the press, because it's not newsworthy, because it's not current. The situations are not current.
Unless it's like Chris 3 years on or something.
Yeah, you do a catch up.
But
I mean,
that's
what this is.
What you're doing now, yeah. So
Do you get recognised?
Free press.
Do you get recognised?
Yeah, and more so now, again, obviously, because it's been put back on Netflix.
well, we were with him when he got recognised and we had to leave the building. Oh, I saw you on Love Island.
Oh, God. Do you remember?
Guys, we have to go. We have to leave the building.
Well,
Was that in The Botanist?
Yeah.
That experience was, we're waiting for you in The Botanist, and suddenly 2 shots of tequila arrive, bought by someone on the other side of the bar who was on Take Me Out with Chris.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, here we go again. And then the woman to the right was like, excuse me.
But she didn't know. She didn't know where.
Where do I recognise you from? I was like, I know.
Yeah. Fuck off, Johnny. Fuck off. Make you drink both of them.
Do you watch TV?
Yeah. Have you ever turned on the television box?
Have you had any unpleasant? I mean, I suppose that wasn't pleasant because we had to leave.
Well, I left. Yeah,
Botanist was nice as well.
It was
It
nice.
was nice. We were enjoying it.
And you drank both tequilas.
Just because I had to, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also because they were free.
Yep. Turned up and they were like, "You said drink these."
Well, no, it was so it was someone's bought you these.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
So
that was
they're free and they're a gift,
Yeah.
which means
couldn't possibly turn
even
up.
though
I don't
at
even
that point
drink.
you weren't drinking alcohol.
So
Force fed.
yeah.
Brilliant.
No, so coming out, thankfully, one of the things I'm really happy about was that because the way that I came across, despite being intrinsically disingenuous, I actually came across as an alright guy on there. Not this alright guy.
But a different
an alright guy. And coming out, I still to this day, although this may be asking for trouble, to this day, I've yet to have someone come up to me in the street and say something that they really, really like, something negative. Everyone's just had nice shit to say. Oh, mate, you were too good for that Zoe bird, you know. You know, do you still see her? Are you still in touch? I'm like, no. Like 3 years on, but
there's a scene where you're getting massaged.
That's where Zoe go.
And does she say she doesn't like you?
She says something to the effect of, I wish Lewis was here, it would be fun with him.
And I think you look up and go, okay. And then put your face back down again.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, with that, like, could you imagine if someone said that to me now? Could you imagine this sort of response that I would give someone who would say that to me now? Like, remembering that she was a born-again Christian that got chlamydia of the eye 6 months before that.
Chlamydia of the eye.
Chlamydia in the eye. She got like a really, really savage eye infection from chlamydia in the eye and then got pasted by Jordan in the toilet downstairs.
But she's a born-again Christian.
Born-again Christian. I was like, this is a girl who also said the sentence to me, I believe in evolution, but I didn't come from no monkey. We'll just let that sink in for a second.
Very interesting.
Guys, thank you so much for your time. It's been hopefully people have learned some stuff that they didn't know about Love Island. Should we K-bye then?
Goodbye then.
Goodbye then.
K-bye then.